All right, so we're back with another video today. In this video, I'm giving another sort of updated Louis Vuitton inspired fragrance buying guide, I guess you could call it. So I did do another video like this a while ago. It was at least a year or two ago, and that video did pretty well. So I figured it's time to kind of give a updated, take on that video, or give some updated fragrances here. So just to get the list started, I'm going to start off with the Meteore scent profile. So I do actually have two fragrances for Meteore. So the first one being Alexandria Fragrances Le Meteor, and then the second one being Maison des Parfums Miribilia. So Maison des Parfums, this is going to basically be like Fragrance World's top end sort of like niche line. And you do smell the quality within at least the two Maison des Parfums fragrances that I've smelled so far. You don't get any sort of alcohol blast at all from these. These do smell very, very high quality. So I really, really do like this one a lot. Now, there are some slight differences between the two. Le Meteor, to me, it is technically a little bit more accurate, especially in the dry down. This definitely, it has more of sort of like a naturalistic floral type of smell, and it is more, heavy. It does heavily emphasize the florals a little bit more. Whereas with Miribilia in the dry down, Miribilia doesn't necessarily smell that floral to me in the dry down. It more so smells kind of like more so like you could say shower jelly. That's the best way for me to kind of describe it. Now this does still smell a lot like Meteore. It absolutely does. At least over 90% for sure. But I do think that, this does have, again, a slightly more kind of like shower gel, blue fragrance type of smell to it. Whereas the Meteor, this is going to smell a little bit more like Meteore in the dry down with, that heavy emphasis on like the white florals that Meteore has, while still also kind of maintaining, again, a sort of blue fragrance type of smell to it. Now I do think that I like the opening of Miribilia a little bit more than I do Le Meteor. To me, the opening of this is actually a little bit more sort of smoother than what Le Meteor is, to be honest with you. I never, I guess, paid attention to or really noticed any sort of alcohol blast, from the Alexandria version. I feel like when I smell these two side by side, I do get like a slight sort of alcohol, tinge from this fragrance for, maybe like the first 5 to 10 seconds or so. Whereas with the Miribilia, I don't get any at all. So this one is definitely blended really, really good. They've definitely used some, really high-end oils in this fragrance. And, again, overall, I think you can't really go wrong with either one. Now, obviously, the Alexandria version is going to be a lot more expensive per ml. So this is a 30 ml. I don't remember exactly what the price is for the 30s, but I know like the 60 mls, those start at like, I want to say $67.99, something like that. And then I think from there, if you go up to the 100 ml, it's like $119.99. Now this is an 80 ml bottle, the Miribilia, and I've seen this on Joma Shop go for as low as like $49.99. If you get it from somewhere like the Oud store, I believe it's more around like $60, I think, like $59.99. And then I've seen some of the Maison des Parfums fragrances on fragrancebuy.ca as well. So I would say, definitely kind of shop around. I know this fragrance right now, I believe, is mainly sort of sold out. So the Le Meteor will definitely be the one that, you can probably get your hands on. But when this is in stock, I do think that this is a really good choice. Now, as far as the performance goes on both of these, I do get better performance from Miribilia. It seems like, this lasts on me around at least about, 7+ hours or so. Whereas with the Meteore, to me, Meteore, it has like the same performance on me that the original Meteore has from Louis Vuitton. So, normally after about 5 hours or so, I really don't detect it at all on my skin, which I really don't understand. But yeah, man, this one, the performance for me anyway, is definitely, it's not as good as what it is with Miribilia. As far as the projection goes, I would say they're about the same. You're going to get, about an arm's length or so of projection for like the first hour and a half, basically. So pretty standard on that. But yeah, man, these are really, really good interpretations of Meteore. It seems like not too long ago, there really weren't any, I want to say really the first one that I really knew about was this one, Meteore from Alexandria. But this from Maison des Parfums was really, really good, man. So again, definitely check out Miribilia from Maison des Parfums, as well as Meteore from Alexandria, if you're looking for a really top tier Meteore experience. All right, so the next one on the list, this is another one from Maison des Parfums, and this is Maison d'Arabie Marine Blue. And this is their take on Louis Vuitton City of Stars. So this to me is, it's one of the best, sort of Louis Vuitton inspired fragrances that I've smelled, just period. Now, I'm not gonna sit here and say that City of Stars is like my favorite fragrance from Louis Vuitton, because it's not. It is still a solid scent profile though. Some people, I think they are going to consider it to be a little bit more on, like the sort of feminine leaning side. But at least for me anyway, I do still enjoy wearing this, man. This basically, it starts off with like a lot of sort of tart citruses. So you get like a really prominent lime note. I believe there's some other citruses in here as well, like possibly lemon and bergamot. But the main star of the show, I think, in this fragrance is like a really sort of prominent TR flower note, which does kind of make the fragrance, wear a little powdery. Now, I do think that they've toned the powderiness down a little bit in this version, the Marine Blue, as opposed to, how it smells in the Louis Vuitton. I do think that the TR flower is a little bit more prominent in the Louis Vuitton City of Stars. And you could say it does smell a little bit more kind of like naturalistic and floral. Whereas, in this, it does definitely smell, definitely floral for sure. But I think just slightly sort of dialed back a little bit, from what it is in the Louis Vuitton, while still maintaining, in my opinion, like overall about a 97% close rating to the original fragrance. So this is still very, very close to the original. You're basically getting the same experience, just with like that, slight sort of tweak to it. And the performance on this is also very, very good. So, each time that I wear this is gonna last easily, like about 7 to 8 hours or so. And the projection on it is actually very good, over an arm's length or so for at least about the first hour and a half, 2 hours or so. So, I know City of Stars is probably, it's not the most popular Louis Vuitton fragrance out there, but it is still definitely a very solid fragrance. I do think that, it is a very nice sort of fresh fragrance to wear during the summertime, especially. I would say really the spring and the summer. I tend to more so reach for this fragrance at night. I love, just throwing this on after a shower right before bed. That's kind of like my favorite time to wear this particular fragrance, but this is still something that I think you could absolutely rock, during the daytime as well. So again, man, if you're looking for a really, really solid interpretation of City of Stars, so far, this has definitely been my favorite interpretation for sure. And this one is Maison d'Arabie's Marine Blue. All right, so the next one on the list, this one is Arabiat Prestige's Marwa. So this is their take on Louis Vuitton's Imagination. And obviously there's been like a ton of different imagination interpretations that have come out, over the years. Some have definitely been better than others, but I do think that this one so far has been the most, kind of well-rounded and just best overall interpretation of imagination. Now, for the first 5 minutes, especially like if you're somebody who's super familiar with, the way that imagination smells, for the first 5 minutes of this fragrance, it is going to throw you off a little bit. This definitely comes off a lot more sort of sharper and rougher, than what imagination does. But even with that being said, one thing that I can say that they did do right is the citruses in this, the way that they come across, so like that really tart sort of citron note that you get in the initial opening of Imagination, that seems to be done, the right way in this fragrance. It seems to smell very, very close to the original Louis Vuitton, has the same sort of softness that you get as well. I think what it is like in the first 5 minutes, I think it's whatever maybe that they're using to try to recreate the Neroli Accord in Imagination. It's just, it comes across almost smelling kind of like a woody note. But thankfully, it's not something that really sticks around for that long. Like I said, it's maybe like the first sort of 5 minutes of this fragrance. And then after that, there's really, really like minimal differences, I would say, between this and Imagination. Now, I do think that this also, it does sort of project a little bit better than what Imagination does overall. So that's been one thing that I've noticed about a lot of, Imagination interpretations that have come out, is they typically are a little bit stronger on the projection side. And some of them, even have, better longevity as well than the original. But this one, like I said, overall, I think it does the Imagination scent profile the best that I've smelled. So, again, the opening is a little rough. It's still, though, to me, more accurate to the opening of Louis Vuitton's Imagination than what something like Essence de Blanc is. I feel like Essence de Blanc, the weakness of that fragrance from French Avenue was the opening of that was just a little bit too green and tart. And that one definitely, it started to redeem itself towards like the mid and the dry down for sure. But this one, even with that, weird sort of note that you get in the initial opening of it, this is still, in my opinion, overall way better than Essence de Blanc is. The tea note that you get in Imagination, that's really done well in this. Very smooth, very sort of soft and calm, and calming. The spices that you get in Imagination, that's also done very well in this as well. Like I said, I think if you were to, kind of spray this on like a tester strip and then spray Imagination on a tester strip, let them sit for 5 to 10 minutes or so, and then give them to someone who's never smelled either and said, hey, tell me which one you think is the Louis Vuitton and which one is like the cheaper $40 clone, interpretation of it. I don't think that, they would really be able to really know. Like, maybe some would guess correctly, but I think it would be like a complete guess at the end of the day. All right. So like I said, this one is definitely very solid, man. The longevity on this, I get over 10 hours. And like I said, the projection is actually a little bit better than Imagination. So you get well past the arm's length for at least like the first 2+ hours or so. So really, really solid, man. I know this one does seem to be a little bit hard to get. I definitely wouldn't overpay for this one. I think, if you can get this anywhere from about $35 to at the most maybe $50, that would be a good deal for this. So again, man, check out Herbiet Prestige's Marwa. All right, so the next one on the list, this one is it's called Champ de Rose from Fragrance World. So this is actually their take on Louis Vuitton's Rose Devant. And this is a women's fragrance for sure. But I really enjoy the way that this smells. The original Louis Vuitton, to me, definitely the florals in that fragrance, they are a lot more higher quality smelling, more natural smelling, and the florals are definitely more prominent in that fragrance for sure. In this fragrance, in the Champ de Rose, the way that the florals come across, they're a lot more sort of candied and, you know, a lot more sort of sweeter. You know, to me, there's also maybe a little bit more of sort of like a dose of vanilla in this fragrance as well. Just overall, this is a much sort of sweeter, more playful, more, I would say, even younger sort of take on the scent profile just in general. But I do actually, I like the way that this smells. Now, I would say, you know, keep in mind, if you are someone who already knows what Rose Devant smells like and you're looking for something that's exactly the same, this won't be it. But, you know, I think if you're okay with a slight sort of twist on that scent profile, I do think that this is a very solid interpretation, and it's extremely affordable. I want to say you can probably get this, like a full bottle of it, for like around $30 or less, possibly, on most websites. And, you know, again, it's very good. It's basically, it comes across as like a very sort of sweet, jammy type of rose, you know, with, I would also say, like some sort of fruity aspects as well. And then there's also like a sort of vanillic base that you get with this fragrance as well. Overall, it's a very nice kind of feminine scent for sure. So the performance on it is also, it's pretty decent as well. So I mean, you're talking at least 8+ hours or so total longevity. And the projection on it, I would say it's not as diffusive as what the original Louis Vuitton is, you know, because the florals in that, they come across, like I said, a lot more sort of realistic smelling, a lot more higher quality. And just overall, that fragrance is a little bit more diffusive, while this one definitely, it wears a little bit more thicker, sweeter, denser. So I guess technically you could say, I mean, the projection is going to be about the same really as what it is with the Louis Vuitton, but it's a different, you know, wearing fragrance. Like it definitely wears different, it feels different, because the texture of the fragrance overall is just a little bit different. But, you know, again, I would say this is still a solid interpretation, or, you know, you could say a twist on the scent profile. I do think the Fragrance World did a really good job with this one. Also, I mean, I don't really know of any other company out there that's really done an interpretation of Rose Devant. So, you know, maybe Fragrance World can do another version of it and put it in their French Avenue line, or maybe even their, you know, Maison des Parfums line. But this one is pretty good. I mean, you know, again, I think at best it's probably about, you know, 75 to 80%, you know, close to Rose Devant. But, you know, again, it's not bad at all. You know, I would say not bad at all. So that one is Rose, or Champ de Rose from Fragrance World. All right, next one on the list is the L'Immensité scent profile. So this one is Einache L'Infinite. And, you know, I've smelled plenty of, you know, L'Immensité interpretations, and, you know, at least for me, you know, as far as what I've been able to smell so far, I think that this is the best one. You know, obviously you've got Jean Lo Immortal, which I think that's definitely the more popular interpretation of L'Immensité. It's definitely more of a twist, you know, more of a sort of spicier twist on the scent profile. Jean Lo Immortal is definitely not as watery and as soft as what, you know, L'Immensité is. And I think, this Infinite definitely does a better job of it. Now, you do have another fragrance from Fragrance World, also called Infinite, that I think was probably the first Middle Eastern fragrance that I had smelled that really kind of nailed, that sort of watery, spicy, herbal sort of feel that you get from, Louis Vuitton's L'Immensité. I think the only issue though with the Fragrance World Infinite was just that, especially compared to this fragrance, Infinite from Einache, the Fragrance World version, it lacked in the performance department compared to Infinite. And I mean, overall, the scent itself, again, it wears a little soft. So it's not the most sort of beast mode scent profile. Unless again you're talking about something like the John Lowe Immortal, which is, to me, it's definitely, John Lowe Immortal is a lot heavier on the ginger, so it comes off a lot more spicier. The overall scent profile, or the overall scent in John Lowe Immortal, to me, is definitely a lot thicker and denser. And it's a lot more of a beast mode scent. So I think that's why a lot of people gravitate more towards the John Lowe Immortal. But I think if you're looking for, the more accurate interpretation of the scent profile, then that's definitely going to be Infinite from Einache. Like I said, it's very sort of herbal, citrusy, spicy. In the dry down, it turns, a lot more sort of ambery and woody. And overall, it does kind of have like that sort of classic 90s freshy type of smell to it for sure. But I think that this is kind of like a modern take on, those types of scent profiles. So I really do enjoy this one a lot, man. Like I said, this was definitely, to me, the best one that I've smelled. I think the L'Immensité, the herbs that you smell like in the initial opening are just, they're a little bit more richer and sweeter in that fragrance. And I do also think that L'Immensité is just slightly better in terms of like its strength than what L'Infinite is. But this is overall pretty good, man. I would say this is, definitely 95+% close to L'Immensité. And, performance wise, you're talking at least like around, 7 to 8 hours or so of longevity. And, pretty decent projection for, at least about the first hour and a half or so. So again, man, check out L'Infinite from Einache. All right, the next one on the list, this is the Louis Vuitton Stellar Time scent profile. And this one is French Avenue's Lumiere Elle. So Lumiere Elle, this to me is like, it's the best sort of bang for your buck interpretation of Stellar Times. The only difference is really that I picked up, between this and Stellar Times was Stellar Times does smell slightly more kind of richer and more concentrated, mainly because, that's an extrait, whereas this is an eau de parfum concentration. So I feel like I can tell the difference just right off the bat, between the two fragrances in terms of, how concentrated each one smells. But, smelling this side by side with Stellar Times, this comes like extremely close, like at least probably 95% close really to Stellar Times. And while this fragrance was definitely, it was on the higher end, I think, in terms of price when it initially came out, this as well as the Lumiere Garçon, I think at the time that I purchased this was like around probably $50 to $60. I think now you can typically find this for like 30 to 40. So, I think at that price, this is definitely worth it for sure. Your other alternatives are, like Alexandria's version, which I think theirs is called Stellar Moments. Theirs to me does not smell really too much different than what this does. And, theirs is even an extrait. So, the Alexandria version is going to cost you a lot more than what this will. And this basically smells about the same as the Alexandria version does. It's a very sort of like citrusy, floral, ambery type of scent, basically. It is definitely a feminine leaning scent. I've seen, I've definitely seen men online who, also wear this fragrance as well. But, at least in my opinion anyway, this is going to be a more, feminine style scent. So I would say definitely beware of that. I don't really wear this fragrance like that. I kind of smell it, for testing purposes, especially like if I have another, symphony or not symphony, another Stellar Times interpretation that I may be wanting to compare with this. But this would not necessarily be a fragrance that I would, particularly wear. This would definitely be something that I would prefer to smell on a woman for sure. I do think that this is one of Louis Vuitton's best, sort of fragrances that, at least I would, recommend to other women for sure. So yeah, man, this one is really, really good. I would say, again, it's about 95% close. The performance on it is not as good as Stellar Times, but you're still going to get, well over 8 hours with this fragrance in terms of longevity. And then the projection on it is not as good as what you get with Stellar Times, but I would say it's at least about an arm's length or so for like the first 2 hours. So pretty solid in terms of performance and just overall. So again, man, check out French Avenue's Lumiere Elle. All right, so the next one on the list, this one is the Pacific Chill scent profile. So this is Banadir Fragrances number 10. And, like I've mentioned in some other recent videos, this is definitely so far to me the best Pacific Chill interpretation that I've smelled easily. Way better than the Maison Alhambra version, way better than even the Alexandria version, way better than the Luciano version that I've smelled. I'm trying to think of any other Pacific Chill interpretations that I've smelled recently, but none have compared to this for sure. This smells basically of the same level of quality for the most part as the Louis Vuitton. Really the only difference that you get with this fragrance is in the initial opening. To me, the Louis Vuitton, the way that the fruits come across in the Louis Vuitton, they do come across a little bit more sweeter and richer, but that only lasts for like, I guess you could say probably the first 5 to 10 minutes or so of the fragrance. This basically smells exactly like what Pacific Chill smells like after about that 5 to 10 minute period for the most part. Once Pacific Chill dried down to that point, when I smelled it side by side with the Banadir number 10, it was like indistinguishable pretty much. This is very, very good. Now, this is also an extrait de parfum, as are all the other sort of Banadir fragrances, or the inspired fragrances that Celine makes. And you can smell that this is a very sort of, high oil concentration, high quality blend or high quality blended fragrance, man. This is really, really good. And, like I said, this is easily the best, Pacific Chill interpretation that I've smelled. It gives you, that really sort of like minty, like that minty kind of green feel that you get from Pacific Chill. You're getting plenty of that apricot note. Just overall, I would say one of the better sort of like summertime freshies, really, from the Louis Vuitton line. And like I said, this basically, it smells like just like Pacific Chill does after about that 5 to 10 minute mark, man. Like it's that good. Performance on it is also pretty good as well. You're talking at least about 7+ hours or so of total longevity. And then for the projection, this does actually project a little bit better on me than what the Pacific Chill does. So it's going to be well past the arm's length for at least about the first 2 hours or so. And then it does dial back a little bit. But even after that 2 hour mark, I would say that this is definitely still going to be a little bit stronger than what Pacific Chill is. All right. So really, really, really good, man. This was, like I said, one of the fragrances. It was the first fragrance that I smelled out of the first 4 that I got from Celine. And this one definitely impressed me a lot. And it really did. So again, I would definitely recommend this. I would say that this is at least, about probably 95% close or so, or even more possibly to Pacific Chill. Like I said, the only thing really that you're missing is the, sort of sweetness that you get in the first 5-10 minutes or 5 to 10 minutes of Pacific Chill. This is not going to smell as sweet as that, but it smells just like Pacific Chill after that 5 to 10 minute mark. All right. So again, check out Banadir Fragrances number 10. All right. So the next one on the list, this one is another one from Alexandria Fragrances. This is the Symphony scent profile, and this is Alexandria's Orchestra. So Orchestra, this is definitely, I would say, matured into probably the best symphony interpretation really that you could ask for. I've obviously smelled this side by side with the Joe Milano Game of Spades Emerald, I believe is what it's called. That fragrance was still a very good interpretation of Symphony, and I would say definitely once the price starts to come down on the Joe Milano, I do think that will be probably your best choice, especially if it gets down to the price of where like Game of Spades Wild Card can be found, for like around that $55 to $65 mark for that. I believe it's a 90 ml bottle. Then I would say that is probably going to be the better buy over Orchestra, because 100 ml of this is going to cost you, again, like $120, before taxes and any sort of discount that you apply and shipping and stuff like that. So it's still, even with a discount, unless probably you get like a holiday 25% discount, still going to run you like over $100 for sure. Probably closer to about 110 for 100 ml. But what I can say is this is definitely the closest thing to Symphony that I think that you can buy. It has about the same amount of strength and potency that you get with Symphony. It comes across very rich. And I mean, this is definitely, it's one of the best sort of, citrus, warm weather fragrances really that are out there. It starts off with like a lot of grapefruit and bergamot. Believe there's a little bit of ginger in there as well. It does, to me, smell kind of slightly floral also. I think easily some people could probably even consider this fragrance to be like slightly feminine leaning. But to me, this is one of the best sort of like unisex citrus, citrus forward types of scent profiles, in my opinion. And it's like one of the most beast mode as well. I've had this bottle for, at this point, probably, I don't know, around a year and a half or so now, probably. And I've worn this fragrance several times, but you don't need really that many sprays. I would say maybe at the most you probably need about 3 to 4 sprays or so, and that's it. So, the dent in this bottle, the bottle still looks like it's brand new for the most part. But 3 to 4 sprays will get you all day long, and it will get you monstrous, projection. I remember the last time that I wore this, it actually kind of seemed like it was a little bit too much, because I remember I was standing in line at a store, And I was just like, man, this shit is strong. Like, it's strong. Like, I know everybody in here can probably smell me. And, you know, this is, if you want like a really beast mode, you know, really easy to wear, really mass appealing type of, you know, citrus fresh scent, I would say this is definitely going to be up your alley, but definitely be careful with it at the same time. This is not going to be the type of citrus scent that you can just spray on you 10 to 15 times, because you're going to choke yourself out and probably everybody else around you. Like, this is a citrus scent that has like some of the most potency and power that you can, you know, imagine, really. And it definitely, it wears fresh, but at the same time it wears, you know, sort of thick and dense as well, is really the best way for me to kind of describe it. And like I said, again, man, this is, I would say when I first got it, it was a little bit less close to Symphony, but as this fragrance has, you know, definitely maturated, this is easily, for me, like, it's at least about 97% close now to Symphony. You know, especially with me testing this besides Symphony as well as the Game of Spades Emerald. This was like almost identical for the most part to Symphony. So I would say, you know, get yourself a bottle, probably buy it, you know, outside of the season that you intend to wear it. So, you know, probably buy yourself a bottle of this like at the end of August or beginning of September, something like that. And then, you know, probably by about June or so, it should be ready. It should be pretty maturated, you know, as long as you spray it a couple of times when you first get it. And this is really going to be, you know, a really, really good interpretation of Symphony, man. So, again, man, definitely check this one out. Performance wise, over 12 hours of longevity. Projection, I'm talking at least like 4 to 5 solid hours of, you know, of over arm's length projection, man. Like, this stuff is super beast mode. A lot goes a long way, or a little goes a long way with this one. Definitely check it out, Alexandria Fragrances Orchestra. All right, and then the last on the list here is the Afternoon Swim Afternoon Swim scent profile. Now, I have 2 fragrances for this. I only have one right now in my possession. The first fragrance that I don't currently have anymore is French Avenue's Pinus Oran. And then the other is Banadir Fragrances number 22. So the reason why I don't have Pinus Oran anymore is I did decide to sell that one after getting the number 22 from Banadir. Now, the Pinus Oran from French Avenue is definitely, to me anyway, it's going to be the more accurate interpretation of Pacific Chill. So I think if you want the more accurate interpretation, I would recommend going with the Pinus Oran. But if you want a slightly more brighter, slightly more kind of citrus forward interpretation of the scent profile and slightly less musky, I would say the Banadir number 22 is going to be what you want. Yeah, the citruses in this definitely are a little bit brighter. They're a little bit more emphasized. They come across a little bit more zestier than what they do in the original Afternoon Swim or even the Pinus Oran. And just overall, I like the way that this one smells a little bit more. So, you know, again, that's why I have both really on the list. I think if you want the more accurate take on the scent profile, then I would go Pinus Oran. But I think if you want something with a slightly more brighter citrusy feel to it, then I think I would go with the number 22 for sure. Now, right now, Pinus Oran and this are probably about the same price. I do know that Pinus Oran, I've seen, you know, that's definitely come down a little bit in price from what it was when it first came out. So I believe that's around like $40 to $45 or so now. Whereas this, the number 22 from Banadir, this is going to be $39.99, and this is a 100 ml bottle. This is also an extrait de parfum, so you know the performance on it is pretty decent as well. It's not gonna be like, in my opinion, super beast mode. So, you know, performance wise, with this, you're gonna get like around probably 7 hours or so of total longevity. And then the projection, in my opinion, it's about the same really as the original Afternoon Swim. I mean, maybe I could say this is slightly better in terms of the projection, just slightly, but really not that much of a difference there when it comes to like the projection. But yeah, man, overall, like I said, I really do enjoy the way that this smells. To me, it just smells a little bit more brighter, a little bit more richer. The muskiness in Afternoon Swim is toned down a little bit more in this fragrance. And to me, the brightness of the citruses are dialed a little bit up. All right. So again, man, I would definitely recommend this one as well as Pinus Oran. I would say Pinus Oran, you could say is probably like closer to about that like 95% mark or even better. Whereas Banadir's number 22, I would say this one is still like a solid probably 92% closer. So, you know, so I mean, it's not like this is like super far off from Afternoon Swim. It's just tweaked in a way that, you know, it is a slight sort of twist on the scent profile, but one that I actually do enjoy a lot, man. So again, check out Banadir's number 22 as well as French Avenue's Pinus Oran. And that's the list, man. That is my updated Louis Vuitton inspired fragrance buyer's guide. Definitely let me know in the comments what you all think about this list. Again, obviously, I know there's some fragrances that maybe some of you all wanted to see my thoughts on in terms of the interpretations that are not on this list. Probably specifically like Ombre Nomad. I'm just not really a fan of that scent profile. So like I said, I haven't really smelled too many inspired fragrances of it. Don't really intend to either. And you know, again, there's also probably some other interpretations of other Louis Vuitton fragrances that are out there that I just haven't smelled and don't own. So this is just based strictly on what I have here. Now, also, I do just want to bring up a sort of mention for Orage, which is Tempête from Fragrance World as well. That one, I would say, you know, if that's the only one that you can get your hands on, I would also, you know, recommend that one as well. It's not, to me, the best one that's out there. It definitely is missing a lot of that sort of iris that you get from Orage. But I do think it is an okay interpretation of it. I just decided to leave it off of this list because I didn't feel like it was really worthy to really be on this list. But I do still have that fragrance, all right? So again, man, let me know in the comments what you all think about the list. Also, I'll have links in the description to where you can pick all of these fragrances up. And if you're brand new to the channel, do me a favor, go ahead and subscribe. And again, that's Jamar from Vegas Scents. I'll see you all in the next video.